Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the old home here where I've got the firelight. I'm just going to chat to you briefly until we ask Jamie from Mulbritals to join us. And it's lovely that hopefully on this pretty grim rainy day outside we can talk about wonderfully creative things that really do make us very excited. And I think the thing is that I'm just going to go live with Jamie. Hopefully, Jamie, you can request to join us. There you are.
Morning, Emma. How are you?
Very well.
It's horrid out, isn't it?
I know, it really couldn't be worse today. I mean, I actually didn't sleep very much last night because the rain was so noisy on our roof.
Well, as you say, you've got your fire going, and we've had ours going for a few days, so it's always nice to get back to that time of the year again.
Yeah. Well, Jamie, first of all, I just wanted to thank you very much for doing this with me. I know you're new to this.
Nerve-wracking experience.
Don't worry. Don't worry. I think the lovely thing about these live audiences and all our fans here that everyone wants to know, really. Everyone's on our sides. They want to know, they want to learn, they want to see the sort of creative world and the processes. So it's really exciting. And hopefully we can share some of our experiences and your beautiful creativity.
That would be great. Thanks very much indeed, Emma. And it's a real treat for you to, well, for me to be able to join you and talk about this. And we've known each other for quite a few years, so you'll know how passionate I am about what I do and why.
That was the first thing that sprung to mind when I thought about you, Jamie. You're extremely passionate about your business. And I think that must come partly from the fact that it is almost 100 years old. Well, you're a third generation business, aren't you?
I look pretty good for 100, don't I? We are a third generation business. My grandfather joined two ladies, Sylvia Packard and Rosalind Ord, after the First War. And in 1936, he decided that he wanted to go into partnership with them. And I think, like a lot of people in those days, they'd lost their fortunes, they'd lost their money. Death duties after the war sort of ravaged a lot of families, and not least our own. And so he had to go and start to work. And he decided, why I'm not quite sure, but he decided to join these two wonderful women who were both trained at the Slade.
Yeah,
and
fantastic.
They were school teachers, and they loved painting on tiles. And so the company first opened its door in 1936. So we're just about to approach our 86th year.
That for me is just so wonderful, and I know how hard that is. I think both John and I have been, working for 25 years in our businesses, and I know it's John's ambition with Neptune to make it a 100-year business, but I mean, genuinely, every day is, another challenge and a struggle. And for you to have kept the business going for 80 years, I think is quite phenomenal. So well done.
Thank you.
Keep it up.
Running a business, as we all know, those of us who run our own businesses, is ups and downs, and it's a journey. And I think those of us that run businesses also realize that, you run a business for a particular reason, and there's a massive passion behind it. And okay, we all want to go out and make a bit of money and afford to do the things that we want to be able to try and do. But actually, it's not all about money. It's about passion. It's about creativity. There's nothing that gives one more joy. And I know you guys will have had lots of experience of this when you go into people's houses and see the works of your labourers on their walls or their floors or in their furniture and so on. And it's a real privilege when that happens.
Absolutely. I mean, I see tiles and sort of surfaces, hard surfaces, as one of the key elements of any interior scheme. And I just think, to be able to find something that isn't just your average tile that has no character or patina, it's not going to cut the mustard, basically. Your scheme isn't going to be as good as it could be. And I mean, I've just got this one here. I'm going to show everybody just to sort of whet the appetite here. I mean, that surely must be your proudest moments, to create something so beautiful as this.
Yeah, it's lovely, and it's the genuine article. It's a beautiful. It comes from a beautiful clay that's been moulded by hand. things have been added to the clay to give it breathability so that it fits with our glazes. It goes through quite a process in order to be able to get it that way. And you know, we're a business about making things that we love, but also making things that are really difficult to make.
Yes.
Because if we didn't make things that were difficult to make, everyone else would just be making them, and we wouldn't be in business. And so, part of what we do is always trying to push the boundaries of our craft, trying to make sure that we can achieve beautiful things, beautiful colours, in a way that is commercially viable, if you like, and that can be produced in a certain amount of volume. So we're not massive industrial makers.
No, absolutely. I mean, one of the loveliest things for me is coming with my team, my design team, to your workshop where you make your tiles, and it's a real kind of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory moment for me. And I just love it so much. I love the fact that you've got the beginning, you've got the clay, you've got the tile, and then you've got these incredible sort of processes you go through with the biscuits, the glazing, the hand painting, the kilns, and then at the end you have your amazing showroom where it's just like a sort of jewelry box of color and texture. It's just magical, it really is. So I would encourage anybody to go to Marlborough if they have time and they can divert off the M4. It's well worth the trip.
Thank you.
But Jamie, tell me, as a child, you started work there pretty young, didn't you?
Yeah, so I would be very often seen there around the age of about 10 in my school holidays, going to earn my 5 bob, as it was in those probably those days. And I used to go and help stack tiles on lines. I'd been up kilns.
Yeah.
It was a wonderful experience as a child in seeing the business come on and seeing it change, and being able to be part of it in my own small way with my father and his 4 brothers who were there at the time.
Amazing.
And so yeah, I was often found there working during my school holidays, and in fact there's a lovely old beam there where you can still go and see the strike marks against the beam, which marks the passing of time every year as I would go and have myself measured against the height of the beam.
Yeah, I love that. I was reading about that in your brochure. I just wanted to read a little extract while this is another tile that I'm very fond of. I worked with you on, Amy. This is called the Emma. It's sweetly named after me, thank you. I love the fact that you say about your ethos at Marlborough, we transform humble objects into works of art. And for me, there are very few companies that can genuinely, hand on heart, say that. And I think, you know, it's such a fantastic gift and obviously a talent that your team have got to be able to, out of a lump of clay and lots of glazes, come up with these really beautiful textures, tones, colours. But I think everyone would probably like to know how you go about making this sort of thing. So why don't you talk us through the brief?
You hit on the sort of key word there, and that is team. I have an incredible team behind me, most of whom have been with me for certainly all of them over 20 years, and some of them over 30 years.
Okay.
We're a very small team, but through that, you know, there's a huge amount of experience. And so, what happens is the life of a tile will start off, as you say, in a humble form of clay. And it will then be made into various different shapes, whether it's a rectangle or a small square or a larger rectangle.
It's a rectangle.
And we then have to develop the colour that we want to achieve. When we're talking about colour as opposed to hand painting, we have to develop the colour we want to achieve. And that's all starts its life off in the lab. And we're constantly looking at what other paint companies are doing, what the fabric companies are doing, looking at trends to see that the colours that we're making are going to be able to sit in harmony with what we're seeing around us. And so life for a tile in terms of the colour will start itself off in the lab where Anita, our technician, will be mixing the glazes. And what makes us quite different from a lot of companies is that we actually mix all our own glazes ourselves. We don't buy in the glaze, we don't buy in the stain and then just add it to a glaze. We will buy in, we have over 70 different stains that we use, and these are raw pigments, beautiful greens, reds, ambers, oranges, blacks, white. So for example, when we make our white tile, most people might think of a white tile as just being a tile with a white glaze over it.
Okay.
Couldn't be further from the truth. You start off with a biscuit, which is, you know, your red clay on the back, and that is the canvas upon which we will then build up colour.
Right.
And so the first coat of glaze to go on that is what we call an engobe, and that is effectively covering the coat, covering the colour of the tile and turning it from a red clay into a neutral palette.
Okay.
That will give us a shade of white.
Right, lovely.
And then from there, we then have to apply other glazes to be able to develop that shade of white. So for example, our white is made by adding black, yellow, and a salmon pink into the glazes, and then they're applied in the lab, and then we have to go out on the production line and be able to mimic what the lab has done. So the lab is working with hand sprays.
Okay.
On the production line, we're working with glazes where we have waterfalls, what we call a V-spray, different types of applications. And so we have to mimic what has been produced in the lab. And when you end up, you know, so with the new tiles, the new ranges, like, for example, you've shown of Halcyon and so on,
yes,
where in order to achieve this colour, and in order to achieve colour that is not just flat, what I want to see when I'm looking at colour of a tile, I want to be able to look as if I'm diving into the glaze. It's got that sort of depth of colour.
You really can do that here, can't you?
That is achieved by layer upon layer upon layer of different glazes that all have to work together. So it's a really tricky process to be able to make sure that each glaze is applied at exactly the right time, just before the previous glaze is dry. Probably sounds rather sort of nonsensical, but if you actually see the process going, it makes sense.
There's quite a science behind it, isn't it? It's not a creative.
No,
it's a huge. Temperatures presumably have got to be exact. You get the temperature wrong, I guess the firing process doesn't work.
Totally. The controls have to be absolutely rigorous, and the temperatures are absolutely vital, not only in the beginning part of the kiln, so what we call the preheat part, but then you have your firing zone in the kiln, and then you have your cooling zone in the kiln. We fire these tiles all over 1,000 degrees centigrade. I get asked a lot of times just on that point whether tiles are fine behind wood burning stoves, and I always have a laugh, because if the wood burning stove ever got as hot as the tile had got in the kiln, the house would burn down. So anyway, I digress slightly, but yeah, temperature is really important. If you imagine making over 200 colours that we make.
Yeah. I'm going to take you, just stop there, Jamie. I'm going to take you on a little journey here into my, I'm hoping it'll work. I don't know if I can do this, but I've laid out a lot of your beautiful tiles on my garden room table. Can you see them?
Oh, wow. Yeah, lovely.
So when you start to talk about colours, this is where I get really excited, because as you can see, I've started to put them into little schemes here just to show people how amazingly versatile they are. And that you said, how many colours do you have?
We make over 200 colours.
Wow.
Which is a lot of colours for a company to make.
That is a lot of colours.
And control, and be able to control and make time after time after time.
So tell everybody who's watching how you make sure that when you make the tiles, say, let's pick this colour here.
Yeah.
How do you ensure that every time you create that tile again, it's going to be exactly the same colour? Because surely, I mean,
so it's tricky. That's our seafoam tile, the Kensington seafoam tile that we've just manufactured. And in order to be able to ensure that we get the same colour time after time, we have what we call a sledge test. And what that is where we have the previous colour from the last run, and we always keep the colour we first ever made. That is our standard. So we can go to a bottle that has that standard glaze in. we can get the density and the viscosity of that glaze absolutely right, and we can pour that into one side of the sledge. We then mix our new color. We get the density and the viscosity exactly the same as what the previous glaze was.
Wow.
We then pour that into the other side of the sledge, and we then draw by hand that sledge over the surface of the tile. We then fire it, and it doesn't matter whether it's fired at 500 degrees or 1,000 degrees, because you're mimicking exactly the same on both glazes. And when that is then coming out of a kiln, we can see by eye whether or not it is exactly the color that it should be, or whether it needs changing.
Okay. That's very interesting, Jamie. It's technical.
Very technical, and needs to be seen to be understood probably slightly better.
Tell us how you achieve this amazing crackle. So can you see on this glaze tile, quite a strong crackle there?
Yeah. So a crackle glaze, we're real exponents of a crackle glaze because it gives a lovely refraction of light, and it does have an impact on color. And it's also an incredibly difficult thing to do safely. And by that I mean a crackle glaze is like, if you imagine a layer of glass. Basically, it's a layer of glass that is cracked.
Wow.
And if a layer of glass cracks, you can run your finger over the surface of it, and it can feel rather nasty. And so what we have to do is to develop a crackle there. You can run your finger over it, and it doesn't feel nasty, and there's no there's no risk of the glaze lifting. That's the biggest issue with the crackle, is that the crackle can lift, because effectively what you're doing is when the tile is going through the kiln, it's called the coefficient of thermal expansion. The tile is going through the kiln. The body of the tile is expanding and contracting at a different rate to the glaze, and that will cause the top layer of the glaze, this is the last coat we apply, that will cause that to very, very gently crack. And as it comes out of the kiln, you can hear the tiles going ping, 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 ping.
Yeah.
And that's them crazing. And actually often we get rung by customers 3 or 4 days later saying, my tiles are making a funny noise. And I always refer to that and just saying, you know, not to worry, it's just the tile singing at you, and it's perfectly normal.
I'm just so in love with these colors here. I mean, I spend my life looking at color and poring over colors, which, you know, there are so many wonderful colors to choose in the world. But actually at the moment, I think this little palette here is probably my favorite.
That's great. And I'm so glad to see that, you know, you've obviously got the wallpapers, the beautiful wallpapers and fabrics that you're working with there. And you can just see how absolutely perfectly they all sit in harmony together. Absolutely.
And actually what's really interesting is you can create a warmer scheme, you know, like this collection that you've got here, this wonderful Ullswater pack horse, this one here. You know, if you put that in the bathroom, it's going to give you one look. But then if you changed it for, so that would be a sort of warmer look, but then you can put this with it, and suddenly it becomes much stronger and cooler.
Yeah.
And then if you've got, say, a very dark bathroom, maybe north facing, then maybe I would brighten it up like this and just create this sort of really sunny feel, and perhaps put it with something like old chalk paint there. Just look how lovely that is, and it just becomes a really sunny bathroom.
Absolutely. And you know, the great thing about color, as you're showing there, is all the different moods that you can create just by changing a single color, as you say, depending on the light, depending on each of us will have different light coming into our houses. And I think it's a really important thing for people to actually see color in their homes. I agree with that. Because, you know, when you go to a showroom and you look at a color, it'll look one color, but take it back home and it'll probably look different.
But you're so amazing as well, because you give the customer so much help, and you know, it's that wonderful bespoke service where you can actually go to Morbitas, you can go to the showroom and chat to you personally about how to create the look that you want in your bathroom, and I just think that's wonderful.
It's lovely for us to be able to do as well. You know, we learn so much about talking directly to our end customers, and you know, one of the things which actually has been sort of revolutionary in our lives has been the fact that we are dealing more and more directly now with the end customer, and that has allowed us to understand the end customer a lot more. And I personally, I love, I love that sort of part of the final project when we get to help people put their schemes together.
You can see the tiles being made. Someone's asked whether they can actually come and see the tiles in the factory being made. Yes, you can.
Yes, of course. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you need to book an appointment, but yeah, we're delighted to be able to show people around.
Yeah, and it's a really fascinating process, I think. I mean, you also help people with giving them sort of advice. And actually, I was just in your brochure, which is a wonderful handbook. Actually, I would really recommend people order this. I don't know if you order it online or whether.
Yeah, you can order it online.
But I love this chapter on page 15 about 9 ways with tiles. And I think for my kind of customers, you know, it's obviously they're using us to help them. We're the kind of conduit, I guess, to create these ideas and these looks. But if you don't have or you can't afford an interior designer, then it's still possible to get the advice from you, Jamie, isn't it?
Absolutely. So we offer, part of our design service is where we will work very closely with the customer, and we will take a brief from them, whether it's their bathroom tiles or their kitchen tiles, and understand exactly what it is they're trying to achieve. So if you go into a kitchen, you know, you may be trying to achieve something which is a focal point in your kitchen. So it might be above your range cooker. We refer to it as wall art, where we use our hand painting, and that will sit above the cooker, and it's very much a statement. But very often it needs working out because everyone's sizes are different and so on. So there we go, exactly that. So that's our botanical etchings panel. And it needs working out, it needs drawing out so that the people can actually envisage exactly what they're going to get. So part of the design service, there is a small fee which we charge, but
I love
part of that. Yeah, there we go, with the farm and birds and animals and so on. And it's all modular, so it's really important for us to be able to draw it out for people so that they can envisage, as I say, what it looks like.
And I think the fun thing is, I've got a client who we've been working on a very large house for about 3 years actually, and we've done 8 bathrooms. We've done 8 bathrooms in this big house, and they're all marble tiles, and we've chosen different colours to go with the fabrics. And the process we go through is because early on in the design process, we'll need to tell the builder what type of wall fitting we're using. So are we using a large ceramic tile? Are we using a porcelain tile? Are we using limestone? So in the process, we would start by deciding on the shape and the laying pattern. So it might be that we're doing a herringbone or we're doing a brick. And then we sort of do the elevations of the bathrooms, but we park the actual choice of the finished product until much closer to the time, so that we are able to choose the colours, as we said, to tie in with the fabric schemes. Because for us, that's the sort of final creative process for us to actually blend these incredible colours with our fabrics. So that's our way of doing it. So I think if you're a customer and you're trying to figure out how, if you've got a new build or you've got a house you're renovating, the builder will need to know quite early on the thickness of the tile. So for example, these two are slightly different thickness, I think.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, so you'd have to tell the builder what the thickness is, but you wouldn't have to tell them much more than that, I think. And then
correct.
I love the fact that you give inspiration on different laying patterns. This is one of my favourite at the moment. It's so cool.
Yeah, the basket weave, it's really nice. It's just allowing people to sort of think a little bit more and be a little bit, just test themselves and be a little bit braver with perhaps what they're using. It's a little bit like with grout. We always used to just use white grout back in the day, whereas now grout has such an important role in what the overall, there you've got the grout with, you know, the dark grout with
yeah.
You know, an off-white tile.
We spend hours in our design studio deliberating on grout colours.
Really important, really important. Yeah, yeah.
Because the difference between that and that, there you go, that's it with a white grout.
Yeah.
And it's much more traditional, I guess.
Yeah.
But then if you go to the dark grout, it makes it feel very contemporary, doesn't it?
Totally.
The other thing is, you know, something like that is quite challenging for a customer to have to just decide on themselves. So that's where you can come in handy.
Yeah, and so mixing of colors, blending of colors, I think it's coming back. But certainly, whenever we develop color, we try and develop color in a palette so that it works together. You can't necessarily make all colors work together, but it needs to be sort of pleasing to the eye. And very often, if you're developing a palette like that, you'll want less of the very darker ones. And
Okay.
so maybe 20% of them could be dark, and then if you're using three colors,
This is
the
beautiful.
40% would be the others. And then that is not so much designed to be used as a palette, although the colors sit together. It's our longer brick, and again, a different way whereby you can use the longer brick and herringbone effect, just to create more interest.
Yeah. And then there's these kind of funky hexagons.
Yep.
Um,
Yep, and people are using those on floors in their bathrooms. They're using them in showers where they might just have a back wall of the hexagon design, and then go out in the sidewalls of a plain, maybe a plain square tile. So they're using, we're sort of using shape as part of our design look, but trying to use it in different ways whereby, as you say, you can use lots of different ways of using it. The scallops. So traditionally, our scallop would have been just as used in the old traditional way, but there you can form it into that lovely design on the right. Very bold, very much a statement. But it's not the sort of thing that you have to use everywhere. You can use it in parts of your scheme.
and you can definitely order a brochure.
And
Jamie
you can definitely order a
ships to
brochure.
Madrid. I think the scallop is so incredible because I was looking at this last night and thinking that is amazing, that design. And then there's another way of laying it, Jamie, isn't there, where it looks completely different.
Looks totally different. So you can
Let me
can
see.
just lay it with the point going down or the point going up, and
The same tile.
so that's the same tile, exactly the same tile, but just used in a different way.
How beautiful is that?
And again, you've got it used with mixes, or you've got it used just as individual color by itself. And again, really important how the grout color has an impact on the overall scheme.
Yeah. Gosh, no, there's so much to think about, but I think, I would say that every tile color that you have created is just immaculately beautiful. There is no color in your whole 200 colors that is gaudy or,
Well, that's really high praise coming from you, Emma.
No, I genuinely mean it.
Thank you.
Mean it.
That's really, really high praise. And, we do try really, really hard. And it's a labor of love. And it's just such a wonderful thing when we know we've got just the right color.
Yeah.
And, I think even you probably would agree, maybe we make somewhat too many colors, but actually I love the fact that we're able to make so many colors and we're able to give that choice to people. And as you said in the design process, particularly from your part of view, tile is not the thing that gets chosen at the very beginning. It's one of the last things that, can be thought about. You need to know the thicknesses, as you say earlier on, but in terms of the actual overall scheme, there's so much more that's got to be thought about from your point of view.
This one's pretty. Yeah. But that makes the point, I guess, of the subtlety of your shades. So, most bathroom tile companies might have 2 or 3 of those colors, but they wouldn't go into the depth.
No, they wouldn't go into the depth. And also they don't have the variation of color. So we'll have movement of color across the surface of the tile. And that again is all down to the way in which we set up our production lines. And it's a real skill to be able to achieve the flow of glaze as it goes over the tiles, to be able to achieve different gram weights going on from one waterfall, and it's all down to how we set up the densities and viscosities of that glaze.
Yeah.
We've interestingly just made a video which was shot last week, and so this will become more apparent to people if they want to watch it when it comes out next week on our website. They'll be able to see the process and hopefully get a better understanding of what I'm actually talking about.
Jamie, Helen has asked, how do you decide the blend layout when you're using 3 colors? So like this, does the tiler choose the number of dark and light? Or
so depending on, we would normally recommend an equal split of color unless you're using a very dark color. So if the colors are, let's just say for example that you've got, if I take say those 3 colors there,
yeah,
something like that, I would recommend an equal blend of color.
Okay.
So an equal amount of colour between the three, and you just don't ever have the same colour next to itself.
Okay.
What you want to avoid is a checkerboard effect, and so that's why we always, if you're using colour where you've got, as I say, very dark colour, then use less of that and more of the lighter colours. But lay it out in front of you and you'll see a nice blend appearing.
And then the other quick thing, which I think is quite useful to ask, is so if you've got a small dark room, say a sort of cloakroom downstairs, or a bathroom that's not very big and a bit dark and kind of gloomy, would you use a small tile in there, or would you go big with the tile and actually go dark? I mean, do you have any kind of rules of thumb? I notice you've got these tips here in your book.
Yeah, so a small tile in a small room can make the room look slightly smaller, and a large tile in a small room can make the tile look slightly bigger. I'm not so sure that that's so much the case on a wall. It's more the case on a floor, I think.
Okay.
So on a wall, I think it's more about the color scheme that you're wanting to try and achieve. You know, we don't make big tiles, we make small tiles, and we make small tiles for a reason, because you know, if you start making these in really big sizes, you just can't do it. You have to get into a totally different technology.
Okay. No, that's useful to know. And then can you use these glazed tiles on a bathroom floor, or not really? Are they not suitable?
Yeah, so if you, you know, most of us, when we've gone to, we're lucky enough to go abroad to Spain, Portugal, Italy, you will go and to stay in lovely little boutique hotels, and they will have these sorts of lovely glazed tiles on floors. There's no reason why you can't use a glazed tile on the floor from a strength point of view.
No.
The reason we shy away from it is because there is a risk, or there is a fear that people will slip over. Actually, what I always advise people is, when you step out of your bath, when you step out of your shower, step onto a bath mat.
Exactly.
You can then walk on anything perfectly happily.
Yeah.
So the answer is yes, they can be used anywhere in the home.
I want to bring back the trend, and I don't know whether this could be possible, but when we first did our cottage here 30 years ago, John and I had a magnet kitchen, and we were on a budget, a big budget, a very tight budget. And I remember so well going to this sort of tile shop in Tunbridge Wells, where we used to live, to choose my tiles before we moved to Wiltshire. And we had a tiled worktop. Now, how often do you see that nowadays?
You don't. It would be lovely to bring back. I mean, I remember well, you know, we used to have a tiled worktop as well. And it allows you to do, it allows you to bring colour, you know, back into your kitchen in a different way. Again, providing you use chopping boards.
Yeah.
And I think
but
most
we
of
had
us
a special grout.
You had a
some
special
sort of special grout that
yeah,
was very,
so it would have been what's called an epoxy grout.
right.
Epoxy grouts have changed. They're much easier to use. In those days, they were horrid to use. They took an awful long time to get clean, and they would stick to absolutely anything. But they are hygienic. You know, you can eat off them if you want.
Yeah.
So yeah, the same thing applies now. You get water-based epoxies now.
You've supplied Soho House, haven't you? Some of the
Yeah, we've supplied Soho House. You know, we're lucky enough to have supplied some well-known names in the industry, yourselves included. Your husband, John's company, as you know, we make all the Neptune tiles for them as well. And
the Neptune Elcott.
the Elcott tiles, yeah, which we make exclusively for you. And over the years, you know, we've been able to, well, if you go to the V&A, our tiles are in the V&A right from the very early days, and old Queen Mary used to buy them as Christmas presents for her staff. They can be seen, they've been used in Fortnum Mason, Harrods, Fugels, and so on. So yeah.
Got a wonderful heritage.
There's a really, I'm very lucky to have a fantastic heritage to be able to draw on. And
can I mention, before we probably have to go, I want to mention one other very lucky thing you've got. An amazing wife.
I'm looking at her now. An amazing wife who keeps me on the straight and narrow, and works. You know, we work together, we work alongside each other, and yeah, we're both
You've
very,
got a
very.
fan in Russia. Look, you've got a fan in it. Hi, hello, Tatiana. Someone in Russia, a lady in Russia's so lovely.
Hello, Russia. Hello, Russia. Yeah.
You supply tiles to Russia, don't you, Jamie?
We do. We supply all over. We supply to Russia. We supply as far away as Japan. We supply over most of Europe, and a little bit in the States. And we don't supply through our website abroad. We supply through our website to the UK.
Okay.
So it's a fully transactional website in the UK, and people can order samples from that, and then they can go ahead and order full orders.
Katerina's in Athens. Can you send tiles to Athens? And
yes,
Spain?
we have done many times, sent tiles to Athens.
Fantastic. Well, I love the fact that that's possible. And I wanted to mention Joe is a very dear friend, and I know that the two of you work tirelessly, sort of, together to keep this brand alive. And for us, it's such an honor and privilege to know you and to use your products. And John and I think you're wonderful, and everything you do is absolutely on point. And I really hope that some of our lovely followers will enjoy the process of choosing tiles from Marlborough Tiles. Thank you.
Emma, thank you both. Thank you both very much, and thank you, John. And I just like to sort of say, I think all your followers will know this, but you guys are such an inspiration to us, and it's been such a pleasure being your great friends, and many years to come, hopefully.
We have, and I'm wondering who's going to take on your business next, because you've got 3 wonderful children.
Yeah, I was thinking about that last night. You know, Emily, who works in interior design, Daisy, who's more sort of working in commercial, and Freddie, who's yet to decide quite what he wants to do apart from ski for the rest of his life. It'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see. Hopefully one of them will, or maybe all of them, I don't know. We'll see.
No. Oh, well, listen, thank you, Jane, so much, Jane. I'm going to photograph the schemes I did, and I'll try and put the names of them on. I might need your help.
Sure.
To quickly put it together. It'd be really nice to post something for our followers afterwards, just with the tiles that we've picked out and highlighted.
Great, absolutely, that'd be lovely.
The only thing I forgot to mention is this new product. It's brand new, and I want to ask very briefly, quickly, tell me, how do you do this?
Okay, so the tile starts its life off as the plain biscuit that we then glaze. So that is just glazed, and this is raw glaze. So if I put my hand over this,
yeah,
you can see it's unfired, it's raw glaze.
Okay.
So this is when we paint, this is the myolica technique of painting. We then, to that, tube line. So you can see, I don't know if you can see there,
yes,
just very gently 2 lines, the rest of the tile here is blank. And it ends up, once we've finished with the whole design,
okay,
all individually tube lines. So that I'm gonna, this is a bit like the sort of poor sacrificial lamb, I'm afraid, but if I do this and take my hand through that, you can see
it's a bit like icing. It's a bit like
very
icing.
fragile, will just fall off.
Right.
So we have to then fire that tile, and then we bring it back for glazing, and it's all individually glazed by hand, and then put through the kiln again. So it has a long journey, this. It starts its life off clay, being dried, being fired, then being glazed,
Okay.
then being worked on, then being fired again.
But is this done like printed on or with a machine, or is it done by hand?
All done by hand.
All done by hand.
Everything is done by hand.
Are you serious? So it's like icing a cake for...
It's exactly icing a cake, yeah. Again, on the website next week, you'll see videos of how that is done. But it's all piped on by hand, freehand, and just like our painting, everything is done by hand. We don't use any serigraphic machines, any screen printing machines, nothing like that. No transfers, won't allow it.
That is amazing, Jamie. And obviously your artists, your craftsmen working for you must have such a precise eye to be able to do this.
Yeah, so it takes months of training. I mean, most of our artists, in fact all our artists, if they're fine art trained, they'll come to us, and it'll take about 6 months before they're ready to actually paint something that is good enough to go out onto the market. So they are a hugely skilled, talented team of people. And there, as you can see with the Emma, that's all painted freehand. And this was done obviously in collaboration with you a few years ago. And it was great fun building that collection up.
We are inspired by inspired by nature. And I love the fact that you've got it in three different sizes as well.
Yeah, and the little tacket.
And the baby.
Yeah, yeah. So you can create modularity with it. And again, that, you know, when we're thinking about design, we're always thinking about how we can actually use different shape to help create a sort of nicely harmonized design.
I guess you could actually do this on its side.
Yeah, you could do it on. You can do it on exactly like that. Yeah, yeah.
It changes it very rapidly when you turn it on its side, doesn't it?
It does, totally. Yeah.
And that comes in 3 or 4 colours, I think.
That comes in standard as the Emma Blue and Emma Green, Sage Green. But because we paint, if you get onto the website, people will see we paint in a myriad of different colours. We can effectively paint in any colour people want. The tile you're holding in your left hand there is the one that we've aged. So we've aged the tile. I don't know if you can see it, but yeah, you can just see. So it's aged in that very soft blue, and it sits beautifully alongside, obviously, the Emma Blue that you're holding there. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, if you've got the time, go and see Jamie in the design studio, and or just order some of these tiles. I mean, they're good enough just to use as placemats if you don't have rooms to tile.
Absolutely.
Just buy a few for your kitchen table and have them laid out and use them for your coffee cup in the morning. Okay, Jamie, thank you, and thanks to everybody for watching. And it's been an absolute pleasure. And I hope that we get to chat again soon.
Emma, thank you very much indeed. And thank you very much indeed for everyone who's watched. And I hope it's been interesting.
Someone's asked a very important question. Do the tiles need sealing? Do you want to answer that?
Yeah, any Crackle Glaze, not only ROs, any tile that is a Crackle Glaze tile requires sealing. And the reason for that is because, as I was saying earlier, the glaze itself is cracked along the surface of the tile. And what you don't want is dirt ingressing into that. So to stop that happening, you seal. And you seal before you cut any tiles, because when you're cutting, you would normally cut with a wet diamond wheel. That gets dirty water into the tile,
right?
And that will then stay in the crackle. So you seal before you cut. It's really easy, just wiping a wet cloth over the sealer over the tile.
Yeah. And
then you do your tiling, you do all your grouting, and you then seal everything. And the only time you would seal prior to grouting is if you're using a dark coloured grout, because you don't want that ingressing into the crackle.
Okay.
And then once you've then sealed, you grout, and then you seal everything again. And it protects the crackle and it protects the grout from getting dirty.
Brilliant.
Very good question.
You're there to help everybody with those kind of bits of information.
Yep.
Okay, well, have a lovely Sunday, and thanks again.
Thank you, Emma.
We've had people from Sweden, we've had Russia, we've had America, we've had South Africa, Greece, all over the world.
Fantastic.
Lovely.
Brilliant.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.